What's up, guys? It's another episode of Movies in Minutes. A little bit of a different episode. We've done one or two of the kind of standalone ones where I talk about some things going on in the movie industry, and just the way things worked out this week. I don't have a guest, so I thought maybe we would start off with that, and then I'll give you some details on some of the movies from this week, and then we'll wrap it up for you guys real quick, right? So, if you've been following anything with the WGA SAG-AFTRA strikes, as of the 27th of September, WGA has settled. They got a contract signed and 99% voted in favor of it, so it's in effect. The strike's over for the writers, right? WGA represents the writers for Hollywood. So as far as the writers are concerned, they're all set. And what's weird is the actors kind of started their strike. I mean, they were due for a contract negotiation anyway, but the start of their strike was sort of supposed to be in solidarity with the writers. So now that the writers are done, the actors are still going because their contracts haven't been settled. As of last week, the SAG-AFTRA met with the Big Four major motion picture studios 3 times. So it sounds like there's ongoing talks. They met again this past Monday, and then tomorrow, which will be the 11th of October, they'll be meeting with them again. So it seems like they're maybe getting close to a deal. It's hard to say because they don't really share what's going on in the negotiation room. You get leaks here and there that talks are going good or bad or whatever. There's not really much to say at the moment, but the strikes are still ongoing. So kind of as I've said in the past, I know it doesn't really affect our day-to-day lives, but from the perspective of entertainment, there have been a handful of shows, movies that were delayed because of these strikes, and as they continue, you'll still start to see things get bumped. I think my earlier prediction was around September you'd see a lot more of a drought in the movies, and I was happily a little bit wrong. I think what they started to do instead was kind of started to pick up a bunch of projects that had been shelved and put those out so the general public wouldn't really notice, and then there are things that were delayed too, but enough projects are still out there, enough movies are coming out every week that I'm sure most people really haven't noticed much of a change. I mean, for me, some weeks it's still there's too many actually. As of the last couple of days, today's Tuesday, the 10th, I believe. I think I had 6 movies that came out over the past week that I had to see, so it was just you wouldn't know that there was a strike going on for actors unless we told you. But I would still try to find movies when you can to support in the theater, because again, eventually when we get caught up and the big blockbusters that you want to see start coming out again in more full force, you kind of want your theaters to still be around for those. I mean, I get it, a lot of the little niche movies that you can stand to wait to watch at home, most people will, and that's good that you're still supporting the movie themselves, but it's tough for the small theaters or the smaller chains to survive the long term, especially after COVID, knowing that people aren't going on a regular basis to see stuff. So I don't know, once a month even, I mean, nobody expects you to go every week. There's not always going to be a movie that comes out every week that's going to drive interest for people, but check it out. I mean, if nothing else, check out the recommendations I give you. I try to be pretty unbiased. I try to tell you which ones are worth seeing in the theater and which ones aren't. So even if you're not listening to me, there's got to be an outlet somewhere for you to be like, hey, yeah, my one movie a month is going to be this based on these trailers or this person's recommendation or what have you. So we had 3 movies this week. 3 movies at least this episode to talk about. And we're going to start with one that actually I don't think anybody will have heard about. I think arguably it might have been the best one that I saw for this batch of films, though. It was called Amerikatsi, and it was an Armenian language film. There was a fair amount of English spoken in it, though, and some Russian, but a lot of people don't know Armenia. It's not a... I mean, if you don't pay attention to world events or you're not well versed in history, it's not a country that, you know, jumps to lots of people's, you know, forefront of their brain on where it is. I had a social studies teacher for a mom, so I fortunately are on, like, I know a lot of these little details about things. And I mean, I don't want to oversimplify. I mean, there was a genocide in Armenia in, you know, our lifetimes for some people. So that's not, I'm not trying to say it's something that, you know, people shouldn't know about. I mean, it's an important, you know, thing that should be taught more, and I'm just kind of highlighting that unfortunately it isn't. But after World War II, Armenia, you know, took heavy damage, like a lot of countries in that hemisphere. And what they did as an initiative to try to help rebuild is they sort of put out like a world announcement to say, hey, if you're Armenian and you live somewhere else in the world, we'll pay you to come home and help rebuild. Unfortunately, Armenia was under like communist Soviet rule, so it was almost like a tactic. You know, somebody who's Armenian American makes their way home, and it's like, oh, well, you're a spy. You know, we're gonna put you in an internment camp to do work and not pay you because, you know, why would we want to do that? And the main character of Amerikatsi, his name is Charlie, and he comes from Poughkeepsie, New York, back to Armenia to, you know, try to participate in the program. And unfortunately, he, through circumstances outside his control, gets put in a work camp. And it's just kind of the story of how he tries to survive his time there, the people that he meets, the experiences that he has. Very notably, he spends a lot of time trying to live vicariously through somebody he watches from across the street in his prison cell, who he ends up learning later is a prison guard at his same prison, and a relationship sort of develops between them. It's not like a romantic one, but how can I put it? It's like a bond, like a shared experience bond, because they, you know, even though the guard isn't in there having to work, he's sort of in a prison of his own, and as you watch the movie, they're definitely, they have things in common that they share, and it's a really beautiful movie. A lot of people have compared it to Life is Beautiful, which, if you've ever seen, is also a very beautiful and sad movie, and in a lot of ways this is very similar. And it's different in that, you know, this isn't something, again, like I said, that a lot of people are well versed in the subject of post-World War II Armenia. So I think it has a lot of room for, you know, people to watch a movie that they don't know exactly all the beats that are coming from it, and to be able to enjoy it, versus, you know, say you watch Life is Beautiful and you know to some greater or lesser extent how World War II ends, so you have an idea that sooner or later there's a clock on how long people are going to have to deal with what they're dealing with, and that's not necessarily the case in this movie. So this one I rated, I want to say, I think that this one I gave 5 stars to. It was, you know, just everything was done right. It had a little bit of everything. It had, you know, drama and sadness. It had comedy. It had some amount of romance. Just a little bit of everything, and it was really enjoyable. I think, unfortunately, it only had a very limited theater run, so if it's something you want to watch, you probably have to check out online where it's going to be streaming. If I had to take a shot in the dark, I'd probably say like Amazon, but we'll see. We'll see where it lands. Let's see, what else was there? Number 2 this week was Exorcism Believer. I have a really hot take when it comes to Exorcist. I preface that by saying I'm a longtime classic horror movie person. By classic, I mean, I grew up with the Universal monsters. I grew up with things like Phantasm, Night of the Living Dead, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, People Under the Stairs. There's so many great horror movies from the 70s and up that I enjoyed. And I might just have a terrible opinion. I'm not here to say that my opinion is better or more accurate than other people's, but I'm not really a fan of the original Exorcist. I don't know why. I personally, as I watch the film, I think the pacing is terrible. I think the storyline is not very cohesive. I don't think it's ever really clear 100% what's happening in the movie. Even by film's end, I couldn't tell you what they did to expel Pazuzu specifically from Regan. They did lots of things. Do we know which one worked? Maybe somebody who's more seasoned and knows the film more in depth than I does, but I couldn't tell you. That's not to say that I don't think the film has other redeeming qualities. I mean, it's got very iconic music, very iconic makeup and effects for the time. I think, those things are to be commended, and I think that it has a place in horror film history. But I don't think that it would rate like a 5 as far as a horror movie goes. And I think, again, hot take, I think the people that are saying that it does probably are doing it out of nostalgia, not because the movie's actually worth it. Cancel me. That being said, Exorcist Believer is supposed to be a legacy sequel. That's kind of a new term that's started surfacing these days, but it's when they make a sequel that's a direct sequel to the original and sort of ignores any other sequels that have come out, in the same vein as Halloween 2018 was a sequel to the original and ignores 2 and up, things like that. So this one imagines that, at the end of 1, Regan survived, and her mother went on to write books about the experience, and Regan disappears, and her mother never hears from her again. But that's not really the forefront of the story. 2 new girls to the franchise, who are friends, go somewhere and do something that they shouldn't, and they open themselves up to things that they don't want. I mean, nobody wants to be possessed and be physically deformed and hurt and things like that, to be screaming obscenities at your family, for your family to not know if you're really you or if somebody else is talking to them. And it's all sort of based on the fact that one of the girls lost her mother at birth, so she wants to talk to her mother. She's a teenage girl, and she has longings for experiences with her mother that she's never had, so she wants to talk to her. And unfortunately, when you try to talk to the dead, it doesn't always lead to good things. So the film explores several different perspectives, which I think is really good. Rather than just having the one girl, you have 2 girls coming from 2 different families, with very different backgrounds, racial, socioeconomic, religious, all that. And it sort of just shows that anybody can be possessed. The earlier films had a Catholic slant, and while they do reach out to the Catholic Church in this movie, they don't do it just the Catholic Church. The film has a very specific message about faith, that no matter what faith you are, your faith is valid. Your faith could be in another religion. It could just be in yourself, your family. Trying to exercise something doesn't specifically have to come from, reading passages from the Bible. Although, again, they, do that, but they show that there are they actually have almost an interfaith exorcism attempt with multiple other religions present, and it's just sort of powerful to see that they acknowledge that every faith could have an effect on trying to exorcise a demon or a ghost. They're not just afraid of one type of thing. It's about your faith and the power that you put into it. So that film I definitely enjoyed. It's not like at the top of the horror list for the year. There's definitely higher things up on the list, because ultimately it's an exorcism movie. You know, they've been done, and it's kind of just coasting on the name of a known exorcism, franchise. But it, other than introducing some of these slightly different topics, like in terms of faith, and it does have an ending that isn't 100% predictable. So I mean, I rated this one like a 3.5 out of 5. Good, enjoyable. I'd go see it if you like horror. But at the end of the day, for the genre overall, the film only has aspects where it's different and doing things that are really groundbreaking, but not an entirely groundbreaking film, if that makes sense. So in the last movie, which it's funny, I enjoyed this one a little less than Amerikatsi, but it was still really enjoyable despite the fact that it wasn't very good. It was a movie called Shelter in Solitude, and I'm from the upstate New York area, a little less than an hour from Syracuse, for anybody familiar with parts of New York or just places that are that you might know name wise. So there was this film that got made here, must have been during COVID or slightly after COVID, because it deals with COVID a lot in the movie, but it's called Shelter in Solitude, and the idea is basically like a washed up country singer who owns a bar somewhere. They're never quite clear about where they are. They give you the vibe that they're in the South, but they either by way of Easter egg and they're trying to like get people to catch these details, or the editing process was just really bad. I don't know. You see a lot of New York license plates. You see school district school buses for schools in an area not too far from Syracuse. But yeah, so the washed up country singer who owns a bar has to close up because of, like, in the first week of COVID, lots of businesses had to close for 2 weeks. And she gets a job as a death row prison guard for a prisoner who's going to be executed within 10 days of her starting work. And it's sort of like the story between them, her trying to kind of break through his shell, trying to give him some hope, some comfort, in his last few days of living. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief in this movie. Like, she applies one night and has her uniform and is at work at a state prison, like, in 12 hours, and I was just boggled my mind. I'm like, wow, there's no way, even during COVID, would they have rushed through somebody being able to work at a prison that fast. If anything, they would have slowed it down to make sure that you're, like, don't have COVID and everything's all, like, safe health-wise. But, the movie had some, like, fun moments, fun laughs, but it just was poorly made. Just a lot of stuff that just, like, doesn't really jibe or work. And then the movie has a really sad, unearned ending. And if maybe they had led up to it a little bit more, given a little bit more setup, it would have made more sense. But it's kind of like the end of The Sopranos. Like, something happens, and then they cut to black, and you're like, what? The lead singer, or the lead actress, is named Shaban. Oh man, I can't remember her last name, but they said that she was on Saturday Night Live. She is also from Central New York, so I'm sure that's part of the reason why she filmed in the area. I know in the cast listing, a lot of the extras were, like, from her graduating high school class, so I'm sure this was partly a passion project for her. I don't think she's bad. I think she had, a good vision on paper. The execution just left something to be desired, and this one I had to give like a 2.5 to. It definitely needed some work and some polishing to make it like a 3-star popcorn movie. It just wasn't quite there. Again, I didn't regret watching it, but I think it's hard for me to recommend. If I had to recommend any of the movies today, I want to say Amerikatsi would be the best recommendation, but realistically, it'd be Exorcist because it's a more accessible film. So, yeah. Shelter and Solitude is going to be more like a, hey, if you want to watch something from somebody who lived in upstate New York. Robert Patrick is also in it as her brother. And Dan Castellaneta from The Simpsons. I don't remember ever seeing him do any live acting, but it was cool too. I think he's the voice of Homer. But yeah, so that's been our movies for this week, guys, and those are updates on the WGA and the SAG strikes. So as always, like, comment, subscribe. Give me any of your takes on these movies in the comments, be they this video or movies in any other. And, we'll catch you on the next one.